Johnny Carson's last interview with Bette Davis revealed shocking truth. She told him something no one expected. Just weeks before her death, Hollywood's greatest actress sat across from Johnny and finally shared the secret she'd been keeping for 50 years, leaving 18 million viewers speechless. July 2nd, 1989. The Tonight Show was preparing for what would become one of the most significant interviews in its history, though no one knew it at the time. Bette Davis, at 81 years old and visibly frail from the cancer that would take her life just 3 months later, had agreed to appear on the show one final time. Davis had been a guest on The Tonight Show numerous times over the years, and her appearances were always memorable. She was known for her sharp wit, her refusal to tolerate nonsense, and her ability to tell stories about Hollywood's golden age with brutal honesty. Johnny Carson had always enjoyed interviewing her because she never played it safe. She said what she thought, consequences be damned. But this appearance would be different. Everyone at NBC knew that Bette was seriously ill, though the full extent of her condition was not public knowledge. Johnny had been briefed by his producers that this might be Bette's final television appearance, and he had spent extra time preparing, wanting to honor her properly while respecting her fierce independence. When Bette Davis walked onto the Tonight Show stage that July evening, the studio audience immediately understood they were witnessing something special. Davis moved slowly, using a cane for support, but her presence was undeniable. She was wearing an elegant dress and her signature bold makeup, refusing to let illness diminish her legendary style. The audience gave her a standing ovation before she even reached the guest chair. It wasn't the usual enthusiastic Tonight Show applause. This was something deeper, more reverent. People were on their feet to honor a legend who had given them decades of unforgettable performances. Johnny stood to greet her, taking her hand gently and helping her into the chair. For a moment, they just looked at each other, and viewers could see genuine affection and respect passing between them. "Bette Davis," Johnny said simply, his voice carrying more emotion than usual. "Thank you for being here. Where else would I be, Johnny?" Bette replied with her characteristic directness, though her voice was weaker than it once had been. This is where the interesting conversations happen. For the first 20 minutes, the interview proceeded as many of their previous conversations had. Johnny asked Bette about her early days in Hollywood, and she shared stories about working with legendary directors and co-stars. She was funny, irreverent, and occasionally profane, vintage Bette Davis. She told a story about fighting with studio executives over a role, ending with her famous line, "I didn't become an actress to be liked. I became an actress to be remembered." The audience laughed and applauded, but there was something bittersweet in the moment. Everyone watching understood they were seeing Bette Davis for possibly the last time, and every story, every laugh, every gesture carried extra weight. Johnny, demonstrating the sensitivity that made him such a great interviewer, allowed Bette to control the pace and tone of the conversation. He asked questions but didn't push when she paused. He laughed at her jokes but didn't treat her like she was fragile. He gave her exactly what she needed, respect and space to be herself. Then, about halfway through the interview, something changed. Johnny had just asked Bette about her most famous role in All About Eve, expecting another entertaining Hollywood anecdote. Instead, Bette grew quiet and looked directly at him with an intensity that made the studio audience lean forward in their seats. "Johnny," she said, "can I tell you something I've never said publicly before?" Johnny's face showed surprise, but he nodded. "Of course, be whatever you want to share." "I'm dying," Bette said with characteristic bluntness. "I know people have been speculating, but I'm telling you directly. I have cancer, and the doctors say I have maybe a few months left. I wanted to say it out loud on your show because I trust you to let me say what I need to say without making it maudlin." The studio audience gasped audibly. Johnny's professional composure faltered for a moment, and viewers could see him struggling with emotion. "Bette," he started, but she held up her hand. "Let me finish," she said gently. "I came here tonight not just to reminisce about old movies, but to tell the truth about something I've been hiding for 50 years. What Bette Davis revealed in the next 15 minutes would become one of the most talked about moments in television history. She told Johnny, and through him told America, about her greatest regret. Everyone thinks my greatest role was Margaret Channing in All About Eve. Betty began. Critics still talk about that performance. It won me an Oscar nomination. People quote my lines from that movie to this day. She paused, collecting her thoughts. But I want you to know the truth, Johnny. That role, that iconic career-defining role, I didn't want it. When they first offered it to me, I turned it down. Johnny looked genuinely surprised. You turned down All About Eve. 3 times, Betty confirmed. I thought Margaret was too close to who I really was. I was afraid people would think I was just playing myself, a fatting actress worried about getting older, being replaced by younger talent. It felt too vulnerable, too exposing. She smiled sadly. My whole career, I played strong women who didn't let anything defeat them, but Margaret was different. Margaret was scared. Margaret was insecure. Margaret was everything I spent my life pretending not to be. So why did you finally accept the role? Johnny asked gently. Because someone I love told me that vulnerability wasn't weakness. That replied, her voice breaking slightly. They said that showing people your fears and insecurities was the bravest thing an actress could do. She paused, visibly emotional. That person was my daughter, Barbara. She was only 4 years old at the time, but she somehow understood what I needed to hear. She said, "Mommy, you're always strong in your movies. Maybe this time you could be real instead." Bet wiped her eyes, not caring that her makeup was smudging. Out of the mouths of babes, right? My 4-year-old daughter gave me the best acting advice of my career. Johnny was openly crying now, making no attempt to hide his tears. What made you think of this tonight, B? Because Barbara died of cancer 20 years ago, Bet said, her voice steady despite her tears. She was only 35 years old. And I never told her, Johnny. I never told her that she was the one who made my career-defining role possible. I never told her how much that moment meant to me. The studio audience was completely silent, and across America, millions of viewers were crying along with Johnny and B. I'm telling you this now, Bet continued, because I want people to understand something important. We spend so much of our lives being strong, being tough, being fearless, and those things matter. But what matters more is being honest with ourselves and with the people we love. She looked directly at the camera. If there's someone in your life who helped you become who you are, tell them. Don't wait. Don't assume they know. Tell them while you still can. Because I didn't, and I've regretted it every single day for 20 years. Johnny reached across and took Bet's hand. Thank you for telling us this, Bet. Thank you for being so honest. I'm 81 years old and dying, Johnny, B said with a hint of her old fire. What have I got to lose by being honest now? What happened next was spontaneous and beautiful. Johnny turned to the audience and said, I think we need to do something. Bette Davis has given us decades of unforgettable performances, but tonight she's given us something even more valuable, a reminder about what really matters in life. He stood up and started applauding, and the entire studio audience followed. But this wasn't applause for an entertainer. This was applause for a human being who had just shared her deepest regret and her most important lesson. Bet sat in the guest chair, tears streaming down her face, accepting the love and respect from hundreds of people in the studio and millions watching at home. For once in her legendary career, she wasn't playing a role. She was just being Bette Davis, vulnerable, honest, and finally at peace. As the interview came to a close, Johnny did something he rarely did. He came around his desk and sat next to Betty on the couch. Betty, he said, I want you to know that Barbara did know. Maybe not consciously, but she knew because you took that role and you gave the performance of a lifetime. And she got to see her mother be brave enough to be vulnerable. That was her gift to you and your gift to her. Betty nodded, unable to speak. Johnny continued, and now you've given that same gift to everyone watching. You've shown us that it's never too late to tell the truth, to share our regrets, to let people know they mattered. When it came time for Betty to leave the stage, Johnny walked with her to the wings, holding her arm to steady her. At the last moment before she disappeared from view, she turned back to him. Thank you, Johnny, she said, for letting me be real. Thank you, Betty, he replied, for showing us all how it's done. The response to Bette Davis's final Tonight Show appearance was unprecedented. The NBC switchboard was overwhelmed with calls. Letters poured in by the thousands. many from people sharing their own stories of regret and reconciliation. Mental health professionals praised the interview for its honest discussion of regret, loss, and the importance of expressing love before it's too late. Grief counselors began using footage from the interview to help people process their own feelings about missed opportunities and unspoken words. The American Film Institute added the interview to their archives as an important piece of cinema history, not because of what it revealed about Betty's career, but because of what it revealed about the human experience. Bette Davis passed away on October 6, 1989, just 3 months after her appearance on The Tonight Show. Johnny Carson attended her memorial service and spoke about their final interview. "Betty gave me many great interviews over the years," Johnny said in his eulogy. "But that last one was different. She wasn't performing, she was teaching. She was reminding all of us that honesty and vulnerability are not weaknesses. They're the greatest strengths we have." He paused, emotion evident in his voice. "She told us to tell the people we love how much they matter. So I'm telling you now, Betty, you mattered. Your work mattered. Your honesty mattered. And that 4-year-old girl who gave you the courage to be real, she knew you loved her. Trust me on that." Today, when film students study Bette Davis's career, they often watch that final Tonight Show interview alongside her greatest film performances. It's considered essential viewing not just for what it reveals about Davis herself, but for what it teaches about the relationship between art and life, performance and truth, strength and vulnerability. The interview has been referenced in countless articles about dealing with regret, about expressing love before it's too late, and about the courage it takes to be honest when you have nothing left to lose and everything to gain from the truth. Johnny Carson later said it was one of the most important interviews of his career. "Betty gave me a lot that night," he reflected. "She gave me a story all about Eve that no one had ever heard. But more than that, she gave me and everyone watching permission to be vulnerable, to have regrets, and to use whatever time we have left to tell the truth." Bette Davis spent her career playing strong women who refused to show weakness, but in her final television appearance, she gave her greatest performance by doing exactly the opposite. By showing her vulnerability, her regrets, and her humanity, she proved that real strength isn't about never being afraid or never making mistakes. Real strength is about acknowledging our fears and mistakes, learning from them, and sharing those lessons with others so they might benefit from our experiences. And she taught all of us that it's never too late to tell the truth, to express love, and to let the people who matter to us know that they made a difference in our lives, even if, like her daughter Barbara, they're no longer here to hear it. If this incredible story of courage and honesty moved you, subscribe for more true stories about the moments when entertainment legends showed us their real selves. Share this video with someone who made a difference in your life and let them know they mattered. And remember Bette Davis's final message: don't wait to tell people they matter. Do it now while you still